All right, everybody, Fight Day Fanboy episode 6. Let's get it going. Coming off the heels of a tremendous card here. Just recording this one from my car. Basically, we just had a freaking awesome fight card. Awesome fight card on the weekend, so this podcast has got a lot to live up to. I mean, just in short, we pretty much had our trans-Tasman warrior, another one of our trans-Tasman warriors, Dan Hooker, go out and fight an incredible Fight of the Year contender. So a lot to cover on this one. We got that. We'll talk about Mike Perry and Laturi Gonzalez. We'll talk about the rest of the card. Give a short breakdown of what we did see, and then I guess we'll kick the gears on and we'll move on to our first Fight Island card, which is pretty exciting. Got 3 title fights on that one. So yeah, not much to complain about there. Let's get it kicking.
Fanboy! The man was a fanboy!
Alrighty. Hope you guys had a fantastic weekend. I know I did. We were out in the city celebrating a mate's birthday, so that's always good, especially in times like this, because, we're finally starting to get our nightlife back, and, when it comes to that, you really don't know what you got till it's gone in a lot of ways. But yeah, we were out there celebrating my mate Tom's birthday, so shout out to Tom. After the Sticks pub, we were getting out of the Uber. Me and Tom were trying to, run across the road, look as sober as possible. He ended up kicking the median strip, folks. He kicked the median strip and he fell flat on his face and got treated to a post-pub meal of gravel, yeah. So, prayers to him, prayers for his recovery. I think he had what looked like it was to be a broken nose, but there wasn't really a ridiculous amount of blood, and also I think he might have stubbed his toe, something violent, and fractured it. So if you're out there, please send your prayers to Tom. Anyway, aside from that messy night, I guess the scene on Sunday morning was waking up and hobbling over to the pub again, and to watch that card, to watch what was a fantastic card, and certainly woke a lot of us up, and the hangover was quickly forgotten. I mean, and it wasn't hard to forget after that main event. But look, Australians, I want to say something before we kick it off. Australians, we're not treated to the same privilege as you US folk are when it comes to watching the fights on a Saturday night, but somewhat it is a blessing in disguise. I mean, I know you guys, I can't really explain the feeling, but it's sort of like a Super Bowl Sunday, almost every Sunday. I mean, it's not, sure, granted, not every card is as special as, as those mega cards and, those numbered cards, but, look, it's always good watching it on Sunday. I mean, as long as you don't have too much of a blind on the night before. But if the fight's good enough, I think in my eyes, you can make a pretty fun day of it. But yeah, let's jump into the card. So we had Dan Hooker going up against our fucking trans-Tasman warrior, Dan Hooker, going up against Dustin Poirier, seasoned vet, fucking just tremendous. Like, this is the kind of guy, Dustin Poirier is the kind of guy that you would have thought had his prime a couple years ago, but he just seems to keep getting better and better, I mean, especially with a few mind-blowing performances. I mean, you can look at, obviously, the first thing that comes to my mind of realizing how good Poirier actually is was the Holloway fight. And ever since then, that rise back up to fight Habib, he's just been tremendous, and he hasn't slowed down. He has not slowed down either, really, when you lose a title fight, the thought in everyone's mind, is this fighter, especially so decisively as Habib beat him, is this fighter really, equipped to keep, chasing those rankings and get up to that title fight again, especially when, you had a champ which really delivered a pretty phenomenal performance. And he is, man. He is. And I think with Dan Hooker, there's a similar feeling of there's more of a doubt. There's more of a doubt the other way is, he hasn't been there. Is he as good as the top guys? Especially after the Barboza performance, where what we did get treated to was, or treated, is probably not the right word for us, for hooker fans, and especially the Asia Pacific region, who's really got a big backing behind him. We got that Edson Barboza fight, which was rough, man. It was rough. I mean, it definitely, if one positive out of that fight is he got to show how tough Dan Hooker was. But coming into this one, there really was a question: is he good enough to hang with these top guys? I mean, we saw him take on Paul Felder in a very, very close fight, and in a lot of ways, this fight resembled that again, but with a even higher level guy. A real true title contender and interim champ. So, former interim champ. So yeah, it was a lot to sort of question coming into that one. It's one of those fights that produces a level of hype, but it doesn't produce a level of hype to what we actually got. It over-delivered in so many ways as a main event, and that it's probably, a lot of people are throwing it out there, and people always do this, fans always do this, they throw out a lot of titles, like, was that fight of the year, was Shane Burgos and, Josh Emmett fight of the year, and there's a lot of recency bias that plays into that, and what I mean by recency bias is, when you first witness a spectacular fight, when you witness it live, as it's live, you're gonna look at the fight much fonder, and you're definitely gonna look at that much fonder compared to maybe Weili Zhang and Joanna, or Zhang Weili and Joanna, which happened earlier on in the year, which was sort of, what you would have said at the time, unbeatable fight of the year. But this one, looking back at it, without the recency bias, well, I mean, I suppose we've had about a couple days to clear that out. I think it is. I think it's a genuine contender. I think it's a genuine conversation that Hooker and Poirier could be up there with, Zhang Weili and Joanna. The only problem is, I think, if you want to talk about fight of the year contenders, I mean, that was Zhang Weili and Joanna was probably the best female fight of all time, and I think that's what gives it the edge on Hooker and Poirier. Not to look at it in a sense of battle of the sexes type things, but I think it's important that a female fight gets a fight of the year. So these guys might just fall short of that, but you know what? That's probably one of the best. 2020 has over-delivered. It's made up for the absence we had pretty much the whole of April and early May. So, yeah, it was fantastic. And what did we come from it? That was 5 rounds of pure war. And what it is as well is not just the fact that these guys were incredibly high level. It's more to do with the fact that made this fight so exciting was that they both had a willingness to brawl. Like a severe willingness to brawl, and that was just shown. That was shown straight up with that fight. I mean, these guys were taking. There's one point, probably the most exciting point. And my mate Peter pointed this out to me, was when they were against the cage right over near that cage side. Poirier landed 2 incredible hooks on Hooker, and Hooker was landing these shots to the body, uppercut, just pure brawls, like unlike almost anything you've ever seen before, which is, pretty phenomenal and a treat for fight fans everywhere. But where do we go after that? Obviously, we have Poirier taking that out 48-47. That was unanimous through 3 judges. Yep, 48-47, 48-47, and 48-46. So I think that 5th round obviously determines, what we have, but you can't look and perceive that as not close. But at the same time, that performance, that 5th round performance for Dustin Poirier pretty much sealed the deal on the fight. And, it sucks. But by the end of that, the pace set in the first 2 rounds should have been enough to dictate a finish. But because of how tough these 2 guys are, we didn't get a finish. So the 5th round, one of them was going to have a worse output, and just happened to be Hooker. It just happened to be Hooker, and I don't know if you can draw that down to experience, or you can just draw that down to, obviously, a gas tank and exhaustion, which is what I truly believe it is, because Hooker in those exchanges in the first 2, in those first 2 rounds, Hooker was really getting a lot off that I didn't expect to be so so well placed and so well timed, those shots. He got a lot of those shots off, and it was fantastic. It was fantastic. So this isn't a loss for Dan Hooker. I mean, obviously on paper it is, but man, that guy's going to come back stronger than ever. And I believe that just in the way the way he talks about toughness in the cage as well. I mean, with the whole Max Roshkov fight, my mate pointed out to me that Hooker sort of is justified in making those comments. What he said, I'll get the direct quote, but Hooker essentially said, "You're made of, how do you get to the UFC? How do you make it all the way to the UFC and realize you're made of marshmallows?" Which is fucking it's pretty savage. It's fucking savage, but with the mentality over there at City Kickboxing, I wouldn't have expected anything different, because, those guys go hard, and Eugene Bareman is an incredible coach, and it's a lot of mentality, and you can see that in Stylebender as well. Just the whole concept of I'm willing to die. Like he said that in that Gastelum fight in the 5th round, he whispered to himself, "I'm willing to die." Like that kind of City Kickboxing mentality, and that's going to take Dan Hooker, and that's going to take Izzy, and that already has taken Izzy, really. And it's going to take Volko, and to some degree it's already taken Volkanovski that way as well. So, yeah, those guys over there, they just keep producing king talent. And if you'd asked me now, if you asked me on Friday if I thought Dan Hooker had what it takes to be UFC lightweight champion, regardless of whoever's in the division, does he have what it takes to be a champion in the UFC? I would have said no. I honestly would have said no, and that sounds like just fucking real douchey of me to say, sitting from my house watching the pay-per-view, or fucking from the pub watching the fight night. It sounds really douchey of me to say, but I wouldn't have believed it. I wouldn't have believed he could crack into that top 5 or fight those contenders. But afterwards, I'm going to say he has what it takes to be a champion, and that's a tremendous, tremendous account of his performance. But yeah, so yeah, not much really more to cap off that fight with. But other than Dustin, I mean, Dustin sort of after that, where does he go now, right? You've obviously got a few people around that contention. Obviously McGregor just announced his retirement. As authentic as it is or not, he announced his retirement, and it appears that even if that were to not be a true, genuine thought or statement that McGregor made, it appears that either way he wouldn't, or he has no desire, or he has less of a desire to fight at lightweight than he does welterweight. So how do you call McGregor and tell him, hey boss, you're gonna have to come back down and fight, Dustin Poirier? That McGregor wants Habib and no one else at lightweight. It just doesn't seem like he really has a care to do that. But if McGregor believes that he could, that Dustin Poirier might be an easy fight for him, as idiotic as that probably is now after seeing the performance of Poirier, he might believe that, and he might genuinely come back and take one against Poirier, thinking he might be able to starch him quick. Or you could get Poirier versus Tony, which would also be a a pretty dope fight. But apart from that, I mean, that lightweight just has that jam at the top. That has a bit of a jam at the top. You don't know if it's because Tony never got the Khabib fight, and there's still questions there. And Poirier, obviously, it seems like he's going to be at that level, that DC level at light heavyweight, where you're sort of, people don't want to see you fight the champion because, as a sad reality as is, people don't want to see you get another shot at the champion because they saw how convincingly you were beaten the first time, that it just, you're just sort of stuck in a bit of a limbo. So who's to say what's next for Dustin Poirier? But either way, if he keeps fighting like that and putting on performances like that, like he's the most champion caliber guy to not become champion, or at least undisputed champion, aside from the interim championship. I mean, is a division change in order? Is it, and can he really do one? I mean, he's already moved up to his division, so I'm not really sure. Not really sure what's next. I mean, you could just be in a situation where we just have to fucking kick this off and do a fucking rematch. As much as we did get everything in that fight, maybe just because of how fucking incredible it was, the brass decided to put on another one. But that's a bit of a long shot. Speaking of a division change, we had Mike Perry in the fucking co-main event against Mickey Gall, who was 2016 superstar. Not to say that defines his career, but beating CM Punk definitely gave him a name, right? And it's like this match, the deep levels of the matchmaking involved in setting up this fight was actually quite genius and quite impressive, because Mickey Gall is the upset king, right? If he was to go in and upset Mike Perry, then that would be another big name on his checklist, right? But for the most part, if that weren't to happen, Mike Perry just gets back in the win column, right? He gets back in the win column, he gets to have a fight, and he gets to, keep his name out there. The difference, the real core idea with Mike Perry, it's not really about winning or putting on masterful performances in the cage. It's about he is a guy that in a sport which is in desperate need of someone who can talk shit and have the X factor. He has the X factor in a sense that I can't even explain. I can't even explain why, but every time I'm subjected to something to do with Mike Perry on social media or, on anywhere, like whenever people talk about Mike Perry, it's entertaining. It's entertaining, and that's the whole thing that has kept him, so in limelight. This guy could literally, I think, lose 6 in a row and not be cut from the UFC. That's how goddamn entertaining he is. Especially with the beef with Darren Till on Instagram, everywhere, and just the way, just the character that Mike Perry is. It's just, that's what's going to get you the co-main event spot. It just, he doesn't really, you wouldn't put him up in the co-main event spot usually, but it's perfect for a guy like that because it's got intrigue. People want to watch it and people love his style. From his style actually fighting, his actual fighting style, which is that real bite down on the mouthpiece, brawl, aggress kind of style, or it is to his style of, just the way he vocalizes himself outside of the octagon. He's really a true star. And granted, that might not be a star which is destined for ridiculous and massive success right now, but he's always going to be entertaining, especially with the whole controversy about his corner, which is fucking hilarious because pretty much he went in there and he proved a lot of people wrong. Like, yeah, sure, right? So the corner does a lot in a fight. You know, the corner can tell you can just, you know, keep you aware of what you might be doing wrong, what you might be missing, you know, like maybe a different thing you can implement into your strategy, how to maybe innovate your game plan and your approach in the fight. But for someone like Perry, the argument isn't really there, because Mike Perry's always going to do what Mike Perry's going to do. And people didn't realise this sooner, but it's so aware after the fight that it's exactly how it was going to go down. So yeah, like, look, awesome. Like that whole segment, if you will, that whole fight and the post-fight interview. I think it made both. I think both people look good. You know, I think Mickey Gall definitely looked like he had improved kickboxing, but there were just so many ways that you could tell, so that Mike Perry was so many levels above Mickey Gall as a fighter. And it's nothing against Mickey Gall, because Mickey Gall literally started his pro career pretty much in the UFC. Like he was so young into it, like with his record, that, you know, while he's got a name for himself, he's still very, very, very early in his career, and he's got a great team down to Serra-Longo, but like, he's still so early in his career, so it doesn't do anything bad for Mickey Gall. But just in those grappling exchanges, especially, you know, most people would go to say, oh, Gall's the grappler, so naturally Gall will have the advantage. But that's just not the case, man. It's not the case. Mike Perry don't let this persona fool you. Mike Perry is a very intelligent fighter. Quite an intelligent fighter. And we got to see that as well, like some of the ways he would get on top in those moments, they had that top control. It was just fantastic, you know what I mean? And like, even at the end of that first round, when Perry actually had his back, it was just awesome. It was an awesome fight. And yeah, good decision win for Mike Perry. And that post-fight speech makes me think that, you know, this man also has the quality to be president. So, Mike Perry, I'm with you. You get every man. You get middle class points, because, you know, who doesn't want lower taxes, and who doesn't want all these fucking trolls to stop talking about raw dogging our girlfriends online? You know what I mean? So good on you, man. But what happened at the end of that post-fight speech was just certainty that he wanted to move up to 185, train with Yoel Romero in Miami, and really target himself for a fight with Darren Till, which honestly is an amazing career move. Yeah, it is. It is a creative career move, because at the end of the day, you're going up to a new division. It's going to take some time, and, you know, you really can't be calling out for those fights. But man, maybe Mike Perry is the kind of guy with that sort of, you know, energy and that attention around him, that could seek out not Darren Till immediately at middleweight, but could seek out a 10 or a 12 or a 15, and then, you know, possibly get the jump on him. You know, Mike Perry's the kind of guy that's going to go swing wild and do all that. If that's the case, he could get the jump on them, and then after that, you've got maybe a 7 or an 8, and then, fuck, who knows? If Till, we've seen crazy as shit before, crazy stuff's happened. If Till ends up going upwards and moving on his career trajectory, and then end up getting this win over Robbie and going on to fight Stylebender, who's to say that we don't get some weird, ridiculous Mike Perry versus Darren Till fight that we just didn't expect, you know? But either way, if these guys keep going and Mike Perry can make a successful move to 185, we might have one of the greatest internet-generated fights that the UFC's ever had. And, you know, who's to say what happens in that fight? I mean, we'll break that down when it comes to it, if it ever occurs. But, look, I'm just saying, crazy as shit's happened before. That's pretty much all the major takeaways from the card. Of course, we did have Maurice Green getting that submission on Gian Vellante, that sort of, it was like if an arm triangle and a Ezekiel choke had like some really sort of ugly baby. That's what it was. But you know, big ups to Maurice Green as well, because that was dope. And Gian Vellante, that was obviously a decent performance from him too. But it just getting up to the finish of that fight, we sort of just, obviously he was tired, Gian Vellante, and Maurice Green cut off most of his hair. So it was pretty awesome submission there. And Takashi Sato got that first round punch. It was pretty much the first 1-2, and then Jason Witt dropped, and then Takashi Sato was able to finish the job, which is dope. It actually looked pretty promising. And Brendan Allen defeated Kyle Dorcas in a unanimous decision, which was a pretty tough fight. Two submission-based guys. Obviously, Kyle Dorcas, the younger of the two. Brendan Allen just looked like he just outclassed him, just that little extra bit. But yeah, pretty awesome fight to watch itself as well. And also, Karma Worthy taking out Violent Bob Ross with a guillotine choke, sort of silencing a bit of that internet hype and just, putting his name on the map there, which was also good as well. But yeah, without further ado, let's break down Fight Island. It's going to be the first Fight Island card. And not to be confused, because it seems like the conversations out there that like is the Octagon going to be on a beach or what's going to happen? But Dana posting that photo, sort of getting everyone hyped for it. What it's going to be is there's a training Octagon, which will be on the beach, and that'll be purely for promotional open workouts and just to get the hype around the fact that actually it is on a a man-made island location, which is cool, man. It's cool. You'll be a lot of cool photo ops there, and I imagine they could definitely do something with weigh-ins there potentially for like the smaller events, or when it comes back to full capacity, do something pretty cool there, especially with press conferences too. So that'll be pretty interesting to see. I don't know how they'll get that all rigged up on the beach, but it seems definitely likely. But obviously the fights themselves take place in that little location they built for that one, which sort of looks like an airport hangar. So it looks like an airport hangar, but I know Dana posted the photo on Instagram a while back of sort of what it's going to look like there. Just those two TVs and the little airport hangar location. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with Fight Island going on past this pandemic and the amount of people that will want to actually go out there and have that sort of fight. Because I know, obviously, Abu Dhabi's been very welcoming of the UFC building that little sort of stadium for Khabib, which is really cool. But yeah, so this one is fucking huge. So you got three title fights on this one, which is obviously the welterweight title, featherweight title, and bantamweight title. So I'll break it down in chronological order, I guess. So obviously got the bantamweight title, which is going to be Petr Yan versus Jose Aldo. For the vacant bantamweight title, obviously the filling up take the place of Cejudo, who has vacated his title after his recent retirement. So you got Petr Yan versus Jose Aldo. Petr Yan's coming in at the slight favourite, and honestly, I'm gonna have to agree with that one. Like I am picking Petr Yan in this fight. Reasons why. I mean, he just looks like something incredible. He's a powerhouse. He's a real powerhouse in this division. He's come through with some real notable wins. And with Jose Aldo, obviously, what the counter argument to that pick would be is that Jose Aldo does present many championship problems, and it's actually a very exciting fight, and that's why the odds are pretty close in this one. But the way I look at it, and the way I see it is, I don't think Aldo, as good as he is, and as good as he always has been, I just think, Father Time catches up with everyone, and I think that's what we might see with Aldo on Fight Island. And, it sounds grim. I definitely think Aldo's going to put on for this fight, but I think Petr Yan's going to run through him. I think he's going to run through him, and this is on record now, so Peter Walsh is going to fucking drill me if this isn't true. But you know what? Last time someone picked Jose Aldo, bet on Jose Aldo against me in a fight, they had to propose. So they had to commit themselves to marriage, and yeah, I mean that might speak more on my friend group and how rowdy these fucking bets get, but it is what it is, and a bet is a bet, and that fight was a fight. And to be honest, look, let's just face the reality. At the end of the day, Marlon, far be it from me to tell anyone how to run a company, but you might think that Jose Aldo won that, but I don't. I still scored it for Marlon, and I scored it for Marlon, and I saw the judges could go one way or the other way, right? But the fact that judges put that down to Marlon, look, I think, you have to be fair with the rankings here, and this might become a little bit of a just cause, because I think Aldo might be in for a bit too much with Petr Yan. But that's just my opinion. But honestly, anything can happen, and Aldo can definitely present, because he's been there before for so long and he still looks good. He could present some championship level problems, and he could catch Petr Yan, just with pure experience. So look, we'll see how that one goes, but picking Petr Yan with a finish, a third round finish, TKO. So yeah, moving on to the co-main event, we have Wollongong's finest, Sydney's finest, Australia's finest at the moment, Alexander Volkanovski, Alexander the Great, taking on Max Holloway. And the Blessed is best, and the Blessed is back for a rematch. And this is one of those rematches where, look, this is justified. I mean, Holloway dominated. He dominated featherweight for a very long time, and Volko obviously came and took it in a 5-round decision in something that actually, surprisingly to everyone, looked pretty clear-cut and really, gave Australia a good name. So thanks for that, Volko. And, yeah, look, this one is paying very, similar odds. Similar odds to pretty much the Petr Yan Jose Aldo fight. So as you can see, it is still a pretty close and tight fight, and people are still betting on Holloway having an off night there. But I'm gonna pick the Aussie in this one again. I think sometimes when, and this very similar sort of situation in my opinion to the Holloway and Aldo, I'm trying to make a comparison here, is that when you beat someone once, you generally, there is a situation where you do just have their number. And I believe that it seems like, this fight's happening, he's getting another shot, but it just seems like Volko's going to be here to stay for a while. He just got to get over that hump again. And I don't, if there was one fight where I'd say, could it go the other way? It would be the Holloway fight on this, pretty much this entire card. I don't think Petr Yan and Jose Aldo is as close as everyone says it is. I do think Volko and Max is close, is very close, and I don't think it's because we were subjected. I'm not going to buy into the idea that Max Holloway is having an off night, but it could be maybe that Holloway is on just a little bit of a, his career maybe did reach a little bit of a crescendo with that Dustin fight. Not to say that it can't get back up there, but it seems like Volko is gonna, I think Volko's performance the first time round, that championship win, was enough to tell me that he's gonna win again. And that's the way I see it. But to be honest, in the pre-fight build-up, Volko's already said in an interview that he wants to go out and knock Max Holloway out. Is he going to come for his head this time? I don't think so. I think the way Alexander Volkanovski fights, he's a very composed fighter, and I think he's just gonna. I'm actually picking the exact same result. It's which is a real piece of shit move, but once you see it once, you sort of, especially with that fight in particular, and how clear cut that fight really was. Not in the sense that it wasn't close, but in the sense that everyone unanimously, pretty much out in the presses everywhere, said Volkanovski won that fight, which is it's not really up for debate. It's one of those things where you can give Max a round here or there, but you couldn't. You could definitely. He'd be very hard pressed to give him that fight or score him that fight. I actually had it 49-46. I've only given Max one round in that, which is. Yeah, it's pretty much what most... I think that was right in between the two judges. I think two judges scored it maybe 48-47, and then... Which was... I didn't see that at all. And then one judge scored it 50-45. So I guess the mean average is what I thought it was. So, anyway, I think Volkanovski comes out and delivers a decision victory. I think those leg kicks will play a part again. I don't think Max will... you would think that a fighter as skilled as Max would make those adjustments. I think Volkanovski's going to still find a way to sneak them in there. I think Volkanovski's got a few more things in his game as well, and I think he's going to put on a pretty damn near perfect fight again. But that might be my Aussie bias. But who the fuck knows? That's the very low rent prediction here, but I think Volkanovski gets it done via decision. Alright, fuckers, main event time. Kamaruddin Usman and Gilbert Burns. So, interesting fight, actually. Something that came out of... It's one of those fights that just... When the welterweight division is, really held up in a certain way... It just takes that one guy to come around and just put on a few pretty spectacular performances and call out his shot and get that fight. And that's Gilbert Burns. And Gilbert Burns has looked phenomenal in his last two in particular, and especially with that Woodley fight. Quick turnaround. Fought Woodley and... So, fought Meyer, fought Woodley, and, looked pretty good. I mean, obviously, people would make the case that, Tyrone, again, didn't seem like he did show up in that one. But, look, I mean, you can't take it away from Gilbert Burns at all. He's had two pretty phenomenal performances. One against, obviously, T. Woodley, like I said before, and Damian Meyer. With that TKO victory against Damian Meyer, which is pretty dope. Pretty dope. Look, Gilbert Burns, it just seems like he was there at the right time. And he posed a lot of threats. His stand-up looks phenomenally better. Phenomenally better than the Gilbert Burns that we knew, even a year ago, and I was about to say 2 years ago, but even a year ago, Gilbert Burns looking like he's got some pretty good hands there. But yeah, look, the key of this story is that they're both at the same camp. And Kamaruddin agreed to go and train with Trevor Whitman. And that seems like that could be the critical thing in this fight. I mean, obviously, you got two fighters, and as Mike Perry would say, you got two fighters, and they're going to be fighters, and they're going to fight, and, it's going to be whoever shows up on the night, true Mike Perry mentality. But the thing about it is, I think these guys have been training there for a while. Kamaru, actually, especially you see it when fighters start getting into that rhythm, and they've already had such a degree of success, and they're such good of an athlete and competitor as Kamaru is. You're going to go adapt yourself to it. You're going to go sign up and adapt yourself to a new training, let alone because high altitude, like over in Denver, you're going to subject yourself to that. I think that could really be the thing that gets Kamaru the win in this one. Again, people would say that like leaving your coach is a disadvantage, but realistically, it's going to open up a new world for him. It's going to have like new training partners, new things to adapt to, possibly new things to learn. So when it comes down to applying the raw basics that have already, made him a dominant champion, I think that might give him the edge in this one. I'm not saying that he's going to come out with he's not going to learn the rolling thunder kick from Justin Gaethje and, knock him out with with that or a cartwheel kick or something crazy. I'm saying that when it gets down to it, applying the raw fundamentals and the fact that it's in, altitude training, I think it's going to be enough to get the better of Gilbert in those wrestling exchanges. More specifically, I think when it comes to that, I think Kamaru's got so fucking good on top, such a very top heavy that I think he'll be able to pass Gilbert Burns in some situations. I'm not saying that the submissions aren't a threat towards him, but I think Kamaru does overpower on the ground, and I think that's where most of this one is going to go. I think they might have a round or two, worst like a round or two up, but I think the wrestling gets heavily applied in at least 3 of these rounds, and I think if it is applied in 3 of these rounds, and Kamaru does get the better, that is 3 rounds to Kamaru. So I think looking at that, I think you have to give it to him. And it's sort of, I am behind Gilbert Burns a lot, and I think it's hard to make this one. It's one of the harder ones to make because at the end of the day, Gilbert Burns was not who I expected him to be, let alone in these past 2 fights. But he fucking put on some awesome performances, but I just don't think it's enough to topple the champ in this one. That's not to say he won't ever, but I think we're in the process of seeing that Kamaru is someone special. You have a few dominant performances, and then obviously with Woodley, and then with Colby, a stand-up exchange we didn't get to see because those two with their wrestling cancelled each other out almost, so we don't get to see that fully. But I think in this one, even though Gilbert has incredible jiu-jitsu, a pretty well-rounded fighter, I think he's just gonna, I think he's gonna be bested. I just think he's gonna be bested, man, with the wrestling. But only time will tell. I'm gonna go for a decision on that one for Kamaru Usman, and yeah, we'll see how he goes. He's pretty safe picks all around for this guy. Fucking hell. Not usually one to make a wild card pick, but you know what? It's called playing it safe, boys. And unfortunately, this first Fight Island card has forced me to. If I was gonna make a wild card one, I would say Holloway. If there was one underdog that's gonna win in this whole thing, like I said before, it's gonna be Holloway. But only time will tell. And who's to know? Jose Aldo might fucking shut me up and kick Petr Yan in the head and take that title back home to Brazil. But only time will tell, folks. Only time will tell, and that'll do it for that one. We'll wrap it here. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the content, just tell a friend. We're in the process of putting this one on iTunes, but all looking out for that perfection, and practice makes perfect. So yeah, have a good one, folks.